Oh, that sucked.
What'd you do?
I just
Pinch
got
yourself?
no, I just got a sliver underneath my fingernail.
Oh no. Better get your pocket knife.
Oh, that's the worst.
Pulling the shade down. It's got one of them pull cranks on it. Pull strings.
Yeah.
And it's like 200-year-old wood here at the office.
Probably
And,
nice and dry.
yeah. See if I can get it out quick. Boy, that hurts.
That's pretty bad, getting a splinter under a fingernail.
Yeah. Oofta. It's big enough I can see it. Oofta. I got it, I think. Boy, that was a bad boy. Okay, sorry. All right.
Good deal.
Okay.
Hi, Moritz.
Let me get everything muted. Good to see you. How you been?
I've been really good. Winter hasn't been too terrible. Had a couple cold snaps. It's dry down here.
Yeah.
Better up there?
We've had a little cold. It was warm I killed a snake in December.
Wow, really?
So yeah, it was warm in December, and then we got cold over Christmas, and then over the New Year, and then it's 50 degrees again today. So
That's crazy. In South Dakota, right?
Yep, yep, in South Dakota. So
What part of South Dakota are you in for our listeners?
Oh, our listeners, the ranch is in southwest South Dakota. We're very close to Rapid City. We're about 35 miles south of Rapid City towards Nebraska.
Right.
We're right on the edge of the Black Hills. You can see Mount Rushmore from the ranch, but it's only about that big. So we are where it converts from plains to badlands. So we have a diverse mix of very different types of grazing. So
okay, can you
pretty
tell
big
us?
Operation too, right? Like, can you go through like how big the ranch is?
We're about 28,000 acres.
Yeah.
We're all contiguous. And we use holistic management. We do planned grazing, high intensity, low duration. Our stock densities are a lot lower than a lot of guys, but we've been doing that for about 30 years. I've been on the ranch for dang near 20 now. Yeah, that's what we do. It's 100% bison.
Right.
We've got some therapy donkeys that roam the ranch, about 8 of those, but other than that, it's all bison.
The donkeys don't hang out with the bison?
Not very much, not very often. Sometimes they do. Depends on their mood.
Yeah.
So
donkeys are mercurial, right?
That's right. So
how many head of bison did you say you guys run up there?
Currently we're running about 1,500 head of adults, and then we'll have pretty close to about 800 head of calves in the spring.
Okay.
So just a little tiny herd, just feed them out of the backyard.
1,500 head to somebody with cows, to the amount of cows that there are in the world. 1,500 head is nothing. Like, how does that compare to bison? Like
bison, yeah.
How big is the bison herd in the United States? I guess in North America.
So North American bison herd, they say, is right around 500,000. So, and the majority of that is in private ownership. So,
right.
According to the last MBA numbers, the average bison producer in the United States, I think, had 18 head. And then if you take Ted Turner out of that equation, I think the number falls to like 12 or something like that. So, we are an anomaly. Yeah. We're an anomaly across the industry. But as far as Western United States goes, especially South Dakota has, the most bison in the lower, most bison producers per state. So,
okay.
And then, we're holding the most bison in South Dakota. I think
Yeah.
actually the most producers are in Texas.
I was
Number-
gonna say Texas and South Dakota, I seems to be always where my bison folks are at. So that's confirming right there. Yeah.
So yeah, number of producers is in Texas, but number of bison is in South Dakota. And
I
you
like
got-
that statistic you said that like the average herd size is around 18, but if you take out Ted Turner, it goes really small. I think I saw a statistic within the last month or so that the average cattle owner has like 42 head. So
Oh wow.
just for
Yeah.
comparison.
Right. But you know, if you think about it, you know, there's a lot of cattle on the east side of the Mississippi, and a lot of them are in small little herds and, you know, on small acreages.
Oh yeah. And then I'm sure that's what drives that number down.
Right.
And similarly, probably in Texas, people wanting just to have, you know, a couple of bison around. That's
Yeah. I think they get into them. I think they get into them to train their horses on cutting horses, and then, and then they grow up and then they fall in love with them and they keep them. So, you know.
a bison's pretty handy. A bison can get around a horse pretty easy, can it?
Yeah, well, you know, the cutting horse folks like them because they're got a little more energy and a little more stamina to them. So yeah, but as far as getting around a horse, I think it all depends on the rider. You know?
Right.
So
They can flat move in a straight line.
they can. They are quick. They move more like a horse, you know, because there's a lot of the body weight is right up on the shoulders. And, you know, like on a cow, you know, like the flexion point on a cow is, you know, just behind the shoulder, you know.
Like their neck, right? Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta get right up dang near on the shoulder before they flex. But anyways, a bison's eyes are offset to the side just a little bit more. And so their flexion point moves back on their body. So they're going to turn more, and then they've got more body weight up on that front quarters. And so they turn more like a horse. And, you know, and then in a herd, you know, they kind of behave more like sheep, you know, because if one turns around, they all turn around.
They don't know where they're going. They're just going there at full speed.
They're just going. Yep, that's right. So
I thought you were gonna say they're like sheep, they want to die.
no. Well, yeah, sometimes they just do. It just seems like no matter what you do, whenever something's worth money, they just want to die.
Yeah.
When they're not worth anything, they'll live forever. So
Especially when feed's high and they're not worth anything.
yeah, especially that.
So since the bison market is so small, like I wanted to ask about how do you market bison and what does the bison market look like? How do you make money on them?
Well, it's agriculture, and it's niche agriculture, and the internet and a couple of companies, one company in particular, Judd Seaman at Quality Auctions, he's really been pushing online auctions hard and been doing a lot of it. Now, before online auctions and video auctions really caught on in the bison industry, you just had to market them yourself over the phone or take them to a local, or not local, but a regional show or association auction.
Right.
Or there was a couple of larger, like Missouri's a big one, Saskatchewan's got one up there, Kramer's, and North Dakota's got one where you can just used to be able to open consign. They're still open. You can take them there live and sell them that way. But we don't have a weekly market like you would with cattle. You can't liquidate them next week. It takes some planning.
Yeah.
And that's just selling on the open. But most people, when they market their bison, is from producer to consumer. So direct sales through farmers markets, direct sales through field harvest, selling halves and quarters. So there's a whole lot of people selling animals that way. And like us, we were primarily a cow-calf operation for many, many years. And we weaned our calves, sent them on to either somebody who would run them as yearlings on grass or put them in a feedlot and punch them through to slaughter weight, and they would sell them on a rail. And then we also dabbled in all the mistakes you make in any agriculture. Well, prices aren't that good. Let's put them on feed and retain ownership and take them all the way and just prolong the pain there. And or like right now we're partnering with a strategic partner who has a website that's devoted to grass-fed, holistically managed meat sources. He's doing elk, bison, some beef now, some pork. And so we have a partnership there. And so the majority of our animals goes through that website. So we're keeping them. We're keeping them, and we're running them on grass and then pulling them off as 2-year-olds and killing them as 2-year-olds. And they're coming in at 1,000 to 1,200 pounds, and we're going that way.
I mean, that's pretty similar to grass-fed situations then, right? Or finished.
Yeah.
Probably
What
similar,
is the
similar
slaughter
weight.
like, though? Yeah, the slaughter. Do you have to have a totally different type of facility to put them through, like a knockbox and stuff, or is it the same?
Oh, it's very similar.
Oh, good.
A lot of the bison facilities are got an extra rail over the top.
Oh, that's all it is. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Extra tall and extra secure.
but most of our processors do a blend of beef and cattle. So they're doing beef and bison. So it's interchangeable.
How far do you have to go to your processor?
A long ways. The largest, let's see, I'll do the top 5 guys. So the top 5 guys, there's 2 in Colorado, 1 out in Brush, Colorado, 1 in just outside of Fort Collins. And then there's a guy in where'd the UFO land in New Mexico?
Roswell.
And there's 1 in Idaho, and there's 1 in Wisconsin, and 1 in New Rochford, North Dakota, out in the middle of, it's not next to the interstate, it's north of the interstate a ways off in North Dakota. So, and then Rapid City, South Dakota, there's a pretty good plant here. So yeah, part of my buffalo go 773 miles, and the other ones go 250 miles, and some of them go 35 miles. So it just depends on who's killing and who has the slots and which animals we're doing. So
Now,
a complicated question.
I'm thinking back to a number you threw at me sometime over the last year when we were talking about how long would it take to kill all the bison if we killed them as fast as we kill cattle every week?
So yeah, the amount of bison that are killed all year long would be killed before 10 o'clock on the first day of business if we killed them like we did cattle. So we only
yearly harvest, not getting rid of all of them.
Yeah, the yearly harvest. So I think last year, we were up to like 36 to 40,000 head of buffalo under inspection killed. And so, yeah, you think about, they do 3, 4, 5 times that a day in the United States on the beef side. So, pretty small market. Just say 40,000 head killed under inspection. That's not a lot.
No, that's when we do 600,000 cattle a week, every week. We're doing 40,000 bison a year.
A year, yep. So it's a pretty small number, and we're everybody that's in the business is like family, because there's just
the small network. Yeah.
Small network.
So we haven't said the name of the ranch yet. Have we done that for a reason?
I don't think we even got introduced. I got a sliver in
We
my
just
finger.
went into it. Yeah.
And then we just rolled right into it.
That's our style.
So, nope, I'm more, for you guys that don't know me, I'm Moritz Espy. I'm the manager at 777 Ranch in Hermosa, Fairburn, Rapid City, South Dakota. 28,000 acres. We're all bison. It's owned by the Hillenbrands. I work for Mimi Hillenbrand. One of the best bosses I've ever had, because I just haven't left yet. So,
who I've heard described as a badass raptor driving hippie chick.
Yep, badass raptor driving hippie chick. That's about right.
I love her email sign off. It says chasing bison on the plains. On
Yeah.
her signature. I'm like, yes, that's badass right there. Yep.
So yeah, she's pretty cool. She's at her other place in South America right now. So
Patagonia, right?
yep, down there where it's beautiful. It's just beautiful country down there. So.
Yeah, be in Patagonia for their summer and then South Dakota for their summer. I could dig that.
Yeah.
I could dig that. So, wasn't Dances with Wolves filmed on part of that ranch when it was like under previous ownership, of course?
No, it was the same owners. Dwayne Lammers was the manager at that time. That was in the early 90s.
Okay.
It was under the same ownership. And yep, the kill scenes were filmed there. So, you know, when Cody the Buffalo was running across at the kid holding the reins of the horse, he was holding the horses. And, you know, he jumps out and he shoots him and he falls and he slides to him. And then the bison, where they're getting hit with the arrows and they slip and they slide and the dirt comes up. That was done. That was done in the corrals and out in the pasture.
Nice.
So kind of interesting there. If you watch, you'll notice they all follow the same direction, because what they did is they pasted the arrows, put the arrow on them, stuck it to them, and so they had an arrow sticking out their side, and they took a bunch of plywood in the alleyway and made a corner. They put a bunch of plywood down and made like a little dance floor, and they greased it.
Oh,
Covered it with dirt, and they would let one out and it would run down the alleyway and run around the corner with its arrow sticking out of it, and whoop, down he went. And that's how they filmed that. And that's how they made them all fall down.
Interesting. I hope none of them got hurt.
No, I don't know. It was in the 90s. Who knows? I wasn't here, but no, if it was a union project, there was PETA people or somebody watching all the time. So they don't let you get it. We've done commercials and movies, and you know, like we just did last year, that Netflix special, Our Planet, was out. So
oh wow.
So we were part of that, and so on those bigger jobs, there's always somebody there making sure the animals are taken care of. But usually that's our decision. Yeah, they've been run too much, or it's too hot, or you know, this is completely enough. So
you guys are just annoying the shit out of us with all your stupid requests, and we're gonna quit for the day.
Yeah. My funniest story is when those people come, that you're called a wrangler. You're an animal wrangler.
Oh yeah.
And that's what, and this is what they do. Wranglers, come in. Wranglers, come in. We need to talk to you. And so that's how they wrangle the wranglers. And of course, you can kind of imagine the crew that we have together. I'm sure you've met a couple of. You've met Justin and Cody, haven't you?
Yeah, I met if they're the same guys that were there when I visited I think it was about a year ago.
Yep, same guys. So yeah, you do that to them, you know.
They probably weren't impressed.
Yeah.
There's other effective ways to communicate that you need to be over there.
Oh, yeah. So yeah. And another funny story. Is this G-rated?
No.
Okay. So we were doing a deal, and Justin was there, and somebody told him to pick up something and move it. And of course, you know, he did it the first time to be nice because he's a country kid and is well-mannered. And the second time he kind of got irritated. And then the third time they got a little more gruff with him. And he says, you know, you can just move your own shit. And anyways, the guy comes over and he talks to me and he says, you know what that guy told me? And I said, well, what did he tell you? And I said, well, maybe you should move your own shit. So I didn't think that was too funny, but you got to stick together. So anyways, it's always a good time. We're different. We're raising buffalo and we're trying to, do things holistically and follow our grazing plan and save the environment and stop climate change. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, just with buffalo, we're just doing it different. We can't be normal. We can't just run.
That's good though. Good.
Takes all kind of folk.
That's right.
What does regenerative grazing with bison look like? Like, do you have the place broken up into paddocks? Are you rotating them frequently, or you herding them around? What does that look like on the 777?
Yep, we're running 27 cripes or 32. I think 32 paddocks right now.
I lose track of how many I have sometimes too.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So, anyways, yeah, several paddocks, and we're rotating them through. Our threshold is 60 days of rest, but our target is closer to 120 days, and I think we've been averaging. I think this year during the drought, our average rest was like 112 days. So
yeah,
so we're hitting it twice in the growing season and twice in the non-growing season.
About every 3-4 days.
Yep. So
how are you moving them?
Well, sometimes you just, with planned grazing, if you do it right, you just open the gate and they move themselves.
right.
So, we use four-wheelers, Cody, four-wheelers and dogs. Cody or Justin or the whole team, depends on which pasture it is and how it lays out and how it flows. But most of the time it's just Cody by himself, just moving animals around, and it takes, 1-2 guys to pick up and move mineral. So that's about it. Change floats. Takes longer to change floats and check fence than it does to move the animals.
Right. That's great.
Because they're wanting to move.
I can agree with that. So when I visited, one of the things we went and looked at was some of your water infrastructure. Have you made some changes since then? And I don't want to talk about like the challenges that you've had watering that many animals at a time with the water that you have available.
No, we haven't made any changes. We've got a plan. I've been working with this for several years with the NRCS because I didn't want to pay an engineer to do it, and I wanted my tax dollars to do it. So we've got a plan put together. We just either need to start implementing that plan and going through that way. So we've got a good plan in place, but right now we're still just using what we can with what we got where we're at, which you saw, which was moving tanks, portable tanks, semi-trailers, large storage chicken drinkers, and and making it work. So
is that eating up a lot of man hours, or is that effective?
It's just enough to get by. It's right now our water is our weakest link in the chain, so it's our limiting factor.
You want to talk a little bit about how that, like, what kind of water system you're on, how much you can get, and how you got around it to water that many animals?
So way back when, in the 80s, when times were tough, there was a water association come through. It was a large community project. And so we've got rural water that comes from a deep well in the hills and serves, 100 and some odd people, including us. Well, when that was designed, it was using the knowledge of the day, which was 3 gallons a minute and set stock grazing. And so that's the way the system was designed. So a lot of my taps, I've got a 3/4 inch Woodford, Iowa, whatever you guys call them, the orange ones, frost-free hydrants. And a lot of those just flow 3 gallons a minute. Some of them can flow up to 15. Just depends on where they're at on an auxiliary line, but the whole system was set up for each hydrant to have 3 gallons a minute. So
Okay.
with high density, low duration grazing, LARP or whatever you want to call it, holistic plant grazing, you've got a large amount of animals in one pasture for a short amount of time. Well, the system was designed for a larger pasture with fewer animals for longer time. So what I've done is I've got trailer pups that used to haul sand or cement. They're pneumatic trailers. I don't know how else.
Like aluminum with a V bottom.
With a V bottom. And then I've got some water tankers that I've bought and some old milk trailers and oil trailers and things like that. And so I move those around and I pre-fill those. And then the 3/4 inch hydrant fills those tanks. And then off of that comes a 2-inch suction hose, hard suction hose, goes to a 2-inch float. And that's what keeps the water level up, because there's a great deal of psychology with animals drinking water. It's if that tank gets a little too low, their consumption goes through the roof.
Oh, really? I
You
never
have
knew
data.
that.
He's got data, CK.
Yeah.
I never knew that. That makes
Yeah.
sense though. It's like they think it's a scarcity issue then.
So, on like a 94-degree day, for example,
Yeah.
I've got these water meters now that are cell phone based. Every 5 seconds it sends a signal up, and then the company holds on to that data for a day and then compiles it and gives it to you over the computer. And so if you can keep that tank full at 94 degrees, daily temperature, you can keep them around 23, 24 gallons an animal, a unit, 1,000-pound unit. But then if you let it fall below that, they'll jump up to closer to 30 gallons. And when you're short of water anyways, you just can't, and all it is a psychology trick.
As in say psychological factor, right?
Yeah. So
They're sensing shortage and
Yeah.
and filling
They're having
themselves
a-
out to compensate.
Physiological response, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so and if you're short of water anyways, or restricted, it's just gonna compound problems, because now you've added another 5 to 6 gallons a unit, which is
A
hard
lot.
to do.
Yeah.
Oh, when you got 1,500 of them, that's a
Right.
lot.
You
So-
know what this reminds me of? The panic toilet paper buying during COVID. Like, that's what's happening.
Oh man, don't bring those days back.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I am brand loyal. I'm brand loyal. Yeah, like hit me.
You want to
with
give
a
them a
stick.
plug? Maybe you'll get sponsored.
Hit me with a stick. But anyways, I live out in the country, right? So
Yeah.
when you go to the grocery store, you got a carload. Well,
Yes.
Amazon.
Your house is like 8 miles off the blacktop down ranch roads.
I know, but I hate going to town.
We all do.
Yes.
But so I order like toilet paper and some canned goods through Prime, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I ordered it in the big boxes and put it down in the basement. Well, I ordered a big box, and then when my reminder come up, it was right in the middle of that panic, and you couldn't get toilet paper, and I was down on the end side of my inventory naturally. And then when I did finally get some toilet paper, this old broad was looking at me cross-eyed. I said, well, this is how much I usually buy at one time anyway, so just leave me alone.
I live
Right.
40 miles out in the country.
Yeah. So
I eat a lot of chili. Leave me alone.
You're funny.
that toilet paper
Bison
doesn't last.
chili.
And you put a roll down in the cubby hole of the pickup, and then it gets all chewed up and everything else. So you're wasting quite a bit. So you got to
Every
get that
pickup.
outer ring of oil and grease off of there before you use it.
I put mine in a gallon Ziploc bag and throw it in the center console.
I'm not that smart. Just not that smart.
Every vehicle has a roll in a Ziploc bag
That's right.
somewhere. Usually it's in the center console of my pickup or under the seat in the Gator.
There you go. You got girls in your life. You got toilet paper everywhere. So
Or blue towels.
the blue ones. Those are good. So yeah. How's things down in Kansas?
It's dry. I think today is about 60 days since we've had much moisture. We've had 2 little snows, but they've been like dry powder, an inch, maybe 2 inches tops. I mean, that's not even a tenth of an inch of rain.
Yeah.
So it's dry. It's been warm. That's been nice. It was 65 today. It's kind of a nice day to be out sorting cows and working cows.
Yeah. Did you get into that high wind and fire next to you?
Right.
We were in the middle of it, like back in the middle of December. Yeah, we had winds of over 75 miles an hour out at the ranch. Weren't any fires close to us this time, but there were fires southwest, west, and north. There's a pretty good size one up in northern Kansas, north central Kansas, that burned. At first, they were saying like 400,000 acres, but they've dropped that all the way back down to, I think, like 125,000. But it's just like it was 80. The wind was 80 miles an hour when that fire was going up there.
Yeah.
Like,
Nothing
no,
to
run. That's about it.
Moritz, didn't you just have a fire happen on your guys' ranch? Did you?
Yeah, we had. Oh, geez, we had. Well, we just had our fire department. I'm on the board of directors for our district, so fire is pretty close to my heart. So that's why I'm that way. I'm not a firebug or nothing. I'm just on the board of directors.
Is it for like controlled burns or for emergency?
Tell you what, in western South Dakota, we do not have anything called a controlled burn.
Oh, really? Okay.
There is no such thing around here.
Okay.
So
you guys have no fire culture.
No, it is a political no on the plains
Really?
yeah, it's the government entities have done ruined that for the private guys. So
like the forestry management in California, probably equivalent. Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, we had an early fire. We've had really weird season fires. Actually, a couple years ago, we had a fire the day before Thanksgiving come through and burned up part of the ranch. It was started by a railroad, and then in the spring we had some recreators out on the Forest Service public ground start a fire. One of those windy days, and it ran onto the ranch. It didn't do very much on us, but it did affect our neighbors pretty greatly. I think we burned up, I don't know, 160 acres or something like that. So we just adjusted our grazing plan there and just gave it a little more rest, and we had to cross 3 pastures to get back into the rotation. So
what changes in forage have you seen on that little spot that was burned by wildfire, or have you noticed any changes in forage, like composition or density?
You want the god awful truth?
Yeah.
I haven't been there since we fixed the fence.
Okay. You've got 28,000 acres to worry about.
Cody was over there and he said it looks good, so I'm going to take his word for it. So
is it like biochar? Like, I think that's the comment I always make. It's like, oh, burns are good. It's like biochar, so you just probably get really good succession.
I think it probably came back better than it was, because it was it was one of them corners that's away from water and kind of hard to get them there and get them to utilize it. So we probably had too much litter.
Yeah.
And maybe a little oxidation in that area, and then fire didn't hurt us at all going through there. So
and then you'll be over there now.
Well, I'll now that you've called me out on it, I'll make a point.
Follow up with us.
And drive over there.
I bet you next time they go through that pasture, they'll get it down in that corner and they'll use it.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, I have not been over there. It was a part of the older fence. It was probably a mid-generation fence. It was wood, and so we replaced the burnt H's and things like that, and drove in steel, so we won't have to worry about it again. So that was the last time I was over there.
That's how I feel about it. Like if I got a wood post that burns out, I'm going to put a steel fence post back in, because if that steel post or that steel H brace burns out, I got way more problems than my fence burning up.
Yep. Yep. So it's kind of nice.
There's spots. There's a couple spots on the ranch like where lightning had started a spot fire, and it'd burn, a couple 100 yards square in a random circle, whatever. I can go back to those even years later and see right where they are.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because the cattle just use it just a little bit differently than everything around it. But we also have a little bit, we do a lot of burning down here. I haven't had fire on the ranch since 2016, so 5 years for me. Getting close to needing it again, because I'm getting, in pasture corners and areas where cattle don't go very often. I'm getting a lot of old, rank, decadent grass that's starting to oxidize and get that real ugly gray black gray black colors in the understory. So
Right.
time to put some fire on that.
For pigs.
Ooh. Oh. And pigs in the hills are a sore subject, Mr. Espy.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's a political non-starter.
Political non-starter. Yeah, kind of like us doing intentional controlled burns on the ranch. Yeah, same thing.
So I don't know when it was. It was around 20 years ago. I'm not for sure. I was in the Navy. Somehow some pigs got into the area and went feral. And anybody that's from Texas or Oklahoma knows what happens when that happens. They multiply rapidly. You can hunt them in Texas. You can hunt them in Oklahoma. That's great. Kansas said, we're not going to let you hunt them unless they're on your land destroying stuff. There's no hunting permits for hogs. We're going to kill them. So KDHE, or is it Animal Health? Whatever the Kansas Animal Health Agency is, I forget what it is off the top of my head, got with USDA Wildlife Services, came up with a bunch of money to start trapping and shooting these hogs. And over about 4 years, they flew the helicopter here in Barber County. The first, second, and third years, they got a whole bunch, like hundreds in a day or two. And then the last year, I think they flew for 3 days and got 21 hogs. And then after that, they've been it's just been monitoring and occasionally trapping one that they find out loose. So we think we might have got them almost exterminated in the area. So yeah, we don't want to talk about letting hogs run around uncontained.
Well, the reason I said pigs is, you remember when the COVID first hit and they shut down the pig plant in Sioux Falls?
Okay.
I think they do 5,000 head a day or whatever they do there. I don't know how many thousand head dogs they did, but there was a glut of hogs in South Dakota and you could get them for next to nothing. I mean, about the freight was all it was. And so Justin was a reformed pig farmer from Indiana. He worked on a farm that had pigs. He was more of Justin's from Indiana, but he had, experience with pigs.
We won't hold that against him.
No. And then, I had 4-H pigs when I was 8. And so we decided we went and got 12 pigs and we turned them loose in Justin's yard. And we had some electric fence for sheep. Some of them, that netting.
Yeah.
From Callaway or Gallagher.
Gallagher. Yeah.
Gallagher.
They can't get through it really easily, right? Yeah.
And we set that up and we converted the old Weldon trailer into a water trailer. And we had 12 pigs going around Justin's yard in a 40 by 40 square. And he was moving them like every 2 or 3 days. And then we had the pigs in there for the summer. And then they turned into bacon miraculously. and sausage and pork chops. And
Yum.
then we let it rest all winter, let it rest most of the spring, and then we turned the buffalo in there. And you wouldn't believe, what kind of action you got where they were just, and some of it might have been the water, and then we were able to concentrate all that biomass right there, and it's gorgeous, so it's funny what you can do with gardening of animals and disturbing that soil, making it look like crap for a couple days, and then giving it enough recovery and rest, and letting it come back. So outside the box, we're not going to do it because, boy, it's labor intensive, and then they're so cute when they're little, and then they're just so mean when they're big, and we're not set up to load them onto the horse trailer or nothing, and they've got way more. We let them go way too long. I think mine was 400 and some pounds by the time we got butchered. But, oh geez,
Was the bacon good though?
Oh, it was good, but you know what it's like holding a piece of plywood, trying to get them onto a trailer.
I do. They make the ugliest sounds. They're just
in the middle of a 1,000-acre pasture, like oh geez. So yeah, no way. I don't know if I'd do it again, but it would have to be hundreds and hundreds, and then you'd have to hire some guys and make a true enterprise out of it. But it was a fun little experiment, and those pigs only had one bad day in their life, and that was it. So
scale is something that people can't always wrap their heads around. Oh, we'll just get some pigs or just get some chickens. Like, I have 7,000 acres here. Do you understand how big that is and how many pigs I would have to actually make a difference to do anything?
Yeah, I know.
Just get some goats. Like, okay, I'll just go get 500 goats. Yeah, that'll work.
500 goats and a herder.
Yeah.
And a camper and a couple of dogs.
It sounds like suspiciously like a black hat coming out there.
Yep, it does. But goats are where it's at.
I think the sheep and goat guys are making more money than we are.
I think they are. Yeah.
On a per unit basis, it's just insane. And then if you can get the direct marketing down and get in the right market area, you've got it made. So
you can direct sell sheep and goats to some ethnic groups, and they will drive out to your pasture and butcher it themselves or take it home live. Like,
yeah.
Well, we're going to be getting into that hopefully this year, and coming episodes, talking to some sheep and goat guys and learning their secrets.
Nice.
If they'll tell us.
They'll tell us. There's this one guy who talked about, he probably will come on actually now that I'm thinking about it. He used to go to the black market in Chicago, underground subway, and sell a load of sheep for cash. I'm not kidding. He would just sell them live to the ethnic market in freaking Chicago. Crazy.
And they probably only had one bad day in their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear some of the story of Moritz. Where did Moritz come from, and how did he get to be the manager of the 777?
Oh, 100% completely by accident.
Best ways those things happen, though.
Yeah.
Failed upwards.
I was going to backtrack. I was going to try to find it, my screen for my Zoom, but I think that's on a different one. I have a big sign that has a goat with a no goats on it, and that's what I use for my EL board Zoom calls. No goats. So I was my family's ag background, whole extended family has touched agriculture somehow. My folks are from southeastern Montana. My grandfolks, one side's been there for over 100 years, and the other side's been there for almost 100. And everybody's either in agriculture or at least not too far removed.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad's place was big enough to raise a family, but not really have two families working on it. They currently lease it out and provide them a pretty good life. I went to school in Rapid City, South Dakota on a scholarship, and I started doing some day labor work at 777 Ranch in college for some extra money. And then I graduated school. I went to work for the FSA for a little bit, and then I went to US Bank Systems as an ag lender, and I got my 3.5 years experience in there. And I was always sitting in there and looking out the window, and I liked what I do. I liked the customers that I had. And this was during mad cow times, so things weren't all that great. But I enjoyed what I did, and I enjoyed helping people. And actually, now 20 years later, I was at a funeral back home and met my very first. I didn't meet him. I saw him and had a good visit with him. My very first customer as an ag lender. And when you're an ag lender, all the other people above you clean their files out of their junk, and they're losers. And they give them to you. And that was the first file that I opened, and I met him, and I went to bat for him in the back room of the conference room with the loan committee. And he wanted to make some drastic changes. And, this was in 2000 and early 2000s. And it was going against tradition. And I saw the numbers and thought it could work. And I went to bat for him. And, 20 years later, he's added property. He's raised a family. He's bringing kids back to the ranch. And that's the story that I want to take away from ag lending. I don't want to take away any of those other stories. That's the story that I want to focus on. And then Mimi was taking over ownership and management of the ranch, and she needed somebody to come work for her. And I was actually down there doing some day labor and working on a commercial on my vacation days at the bank. And I said, Mimi, if you ever got a job opening here, and give me a call. I might come down and help you out. So she called that bluff, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And there ain't nothing worse than telling your dad, who's been a rancher all his life, and you say, Dad, I'm going to quit the bank. I'm not going to wear a tie anymore. And I'm going to get rid of my stable job and my 401k, and I'm going to go work for a ranch, be a hired man.
Did he disown you or threaten to?
He was, you could kind of see that, I think he was more shocked than anything, but, he was supportive. He says, well, you got to go do it. I was in my mid-20s. What did I have to lose? If it didn't work out, I'm sure he probably would have opened up the couch and laid on the heavy glares and a few told you so's, and then I probably could have got back on my feet and did something else. But I had my resume built. I could always just go work for Wells Fargo or somebody else at that time. So there was a way out. It was just, but I don't think anybody thought it was going to stick, and by God, it stuck. Because once you drink the Kool-Aid out of the, you finally finish Alan Savory's book, and then, you get through that, and then you're chasing buffalo. You're in. There's no turning around. So,
I think what also helps, you made the comment already, is you have an amazing boss, and I think that is something that's very crucial. It sounds like she's been pretty crucial to you staying on, right?
Yeah, we've developed a relationship over the years, because people that know me personally, I like to have a good time and drive fast. I don't know what else to put it, but fast horses and walk slowly. And that's what I like to do. And she let me grow, let me make some mistakes, let me fail forward. And when I did fail backwards, gave me a good swift kick to get me back forward again. So we've made mistakes on the ranch, but we were feeding 100%. Well, not 100%. We were feeding close to probably 75-80% of our calf crop in the corrals on a feed ration and taking them clear to slaughter. And so we were carrying overheads there, and then we were feeding hay and cake to the herd, and we were running pretty close to 2,800 head, maybe close to 3,000 head. And yeah, those were big numbers, and they were fun to put up. But it was a lot of work. It was feeding animals in the corrals every day, truckload leaving about every week. Just
was that too many bison for the ranch?
Not with supplemental feed. That's why we were feeding so much hay and cake.
Okay.
So, we had them on feed, for 5.5 months. So, the 20th October, you just started filling the feed wagon with ground hay and cake and going out and feeding every day. And
you're not doing that anymore, are you?
No. So yeah, now we're down to, about 1,500. When it was wet a couple years ago, I think we were up to 1,900 animal units, like 2,400 head, but like 1,800 units. But now we feed less. We finish on grass. We're AGA certified and GAP certified. So that's the way we're going. So we decreased our overheads, crazy amounts, and then shortened our cash flow down to less than a year by going from holding them and feeding them to slaughter to selling calves. And then we did that for several years, and now we're ratcheting back up into holding yearlings and then running them as 2-year-olds. And so, we went from a 24 to 36 month cash flow down to a year cash flow, and now we're ratcheting it back up to 18, 24 month cash flow, but slowly, and doing it on grass without adding overheads. So that's where we're trying to do there.
Okay.
And, there's a lot of volatility on the calf side, but there's some stability on the grass fed side, on the finished side, grass finished, and we're trying to grow that grass finished because bison have this halo. And to my fellow bison producers, I'm not trying to kick any dirt or draw any lines in the stand. We're in this together. We're all about protein and we're all about the species. But the consumer's eyes, there's a halo on these animals' head, and the basic assumption is that it is bison and it is grass fed, and that is not the case. And we're trying to make ourselves a smaller niche inside of a niche, and say that we are a GAP certified product and an AGA certified product, third party verified grass fed animal from your door, from our pasture to your door. So that's where we're going.
Regeneratively grazed. I like it.
Yeah. So, and we're making steps, and I think next year on Sean's packages, there'll be a QR code, and you'll be able to scan that QR code. You'll be able to see which animal that was, and if you want to dig a little deeper, we've got the software set up and the traceability program set up and running now, that you'll be able to scan that QR code, and then you can see every time we move that animal from one pasture to another, when it left the ranch, when it arrived, and when it was killed, and when it was boxed, and everything else. So,
okay, I got to know more about that, because it's kind of hard to talk about traceability like that with a lot of cow guys, because a lot of cow guys are frankly afraid of it. I'm not, so I want to hear some more about that system. Like, what's it called, and
Well, right now the management system, well, what's it called? It's called the EID tags.
Okay.
That's the basics.
How are you tracking it with your software?
So we're using AgriWeb right now, and then Sean's working with a developer to take that information from AgriWeb and then correlate it over to the QR code.
Okay.
So that's where we're at now. We're not even into beta yet. So so that's where we're at. But hopefully by next year it'll work. So
Not where I'm at. Got a good solid concept and you think you know how it should work.
Yeah. But no, 95% of it's there through AgriWeb.
Okay.
We're using they're out of Australia. And then they're in the United States now. They're a group of young guys. They're really good. We did use Maya as a grazing app, and we use Pasture Map. Actually, I'm still using Pasture Map. I like Maya. Maya was good for analytics, but as a whole farm program, it really didn't fit. So we gave AgriWeb a try, and that's where we're at now. And they record every time we put out mineral, every time we move animals, anything that's done, tagging. You can do scoring, like if one's got a bad foot, you can flag it and everything else and record all that. So, and then primarily that was for our GAP certification, for our third-party certifications. So, because they're going to be tougher and tougher every year, and AGA is going to be tougher and tougher. We're Autobond also, but Autobond's pretty easy. So that was pretty much for the third party verification to verify that, they are on pasture. They're not in the corrals for more than 45 days.
Yeah.
So it's real live information that's printable in a easily digestible form for your auditors. And like you said, it's a tough conversation for the cattle guys, because the cattle guys, like right now, we can demand a little bit of premium for that.
Yeah.
And this whole deal of RFIDs, I got to pay the cost. You've got to pay the cost, but you're not getting any premium. So now our overheads and our direct cost per head has gone up, because we've got to buy the readers, we've got to pay for the software, we've got to buy the iPads, and like my neighbor that came over to help me, he was kind of chuckling. We were doing a sort on a miscellaneous pen, and we had about 6 different animals in this pen, and we were rescanning them, and I had the iPad in my left hand and a stylus in my mouth for my iPad, and I was running the hydraulic chute with the other. had my scanner. The boss had the scanner, and she was scanning them in the ready chute behind the squeeze chute. I was running the hydraulic sword out the front, and he thought that was pretty funny that you got that iPad. He says if the phone would have rang, it would have been a really good picture to take if I would have been talking on the phone at the same time. So, but that's where it's coming from, because everybody, it's that 1/2 of 1% that ruins it for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
This guy that says, yep, we're all this, or, what do you call it? Greenwashing or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever those companies are doing that are making it tough, because it used to be, oh yeah, come out and, we're trying to be as transparent as we can be. We host several groups and tours and things like that, have visitors. We got nothing to hide, but the average consumer can't, just load up and come to South Dakota and verify. So we've got to develop that trust some other way, because it's just not a affidavit. It's just not a signature. Oh yeah, I've owned these animals their whole life, and they've been on grass, and they've never had any animal byproducts and things like that. And well, like lanolin. Is lanolin an animal byproduct?
I'd probably say Yeah, because it comes from wool.
Right. In my mind, it's not. But if somebody found out that it come from wool, did that sheep have to die to get that lanolin? Or was it dead after, so I mean, it's a gray area. So like, I don't know, check with your vitamin D. Like you're in your mineral regime, most of your vitamin D is sourced out of from lanolin.
Really? Well, is that like similar to tallow then?
Well, similar, but lanolin comes from the oils in the wool.
Yeah, the
Tallow
tallow
comes
is.
from the fat after they've been butchered. So, but if you just imagine yourself as somebody in downtown whatever urban metropolis, and you're like, well, what is lanolin? Well, lanolin is oil off of a sheep, from their wool. Well, so like even our vitamin D, we pay extra to get the medical grade human stuff for vitamin D instead of just getting it from lanolin. So that's how deep we're going. So, that's where we're trying to be. And and then non-GMO, God, everywhere I go, there's a fucking GMO standing around the corner gonna get me. And but we don't feed our animals any GMOs, and it's just like
My
those
cows
potato
get sea
chips.
salt
Yeah,
and alfalfa.
yeah,
Like, and only just a little bit of alfalfa to get them through the winter because my forage is protein deficient.
right.
I use C90 sea salt, and they quit eating everything else. They quit eating the mineral blocks that we had out.
Yeah.
No, do bison, how do you supplement a bison? Like, do they need a lot different of a mineral package than a cow, or is it pretty similar?
There's no significant data research that knows what the true nutritional intake for bison is.
Good answer.
So you just got to go off your historical calving rates and how good they look. If they look like crap, they got a dull look to them, they're probably something missing. And so we built our mineral program off of cattle data, and tweaked it from there. The hard part about mineral supplementation for bison is getting them to eat it. And there's camps of people that have just the bare trace mineral buffets out there. Redmond, tell you what, there's Redmond is a big player, Payback and Purina.
Multi-bin? Okay, yeah.
Um,
Do they have injectables for bison or no?
There is no labeled use for any pharmaceuticals for bison because anytime you use anything for bison, it's off label. So,
Oh wow, I didn't know that either.
but I am a big proponent of multi-min. I really enjoy multi-min, and I think it really makes a difference, especially on them baby calves. So, but yeah,
I feel like that's a missed opportunity, Moritz, for them not to label it for bison use.
well, the amount of sales that's going to go into the bison, and then it has to be studied.
They don't think it's significant enough. Is that what it is? That's crazy.
500,000 head of bison, like that wouldn't.
That's so, I don't know.
Study.
That's so pretty effed up. Like,
yeah,
just put it on there so we can do it.
But I mean, you go to the USDA and they got nutritional requirements for emus, ostriches, and everything else, but
Camel.
there just hasn't been enough done on bison. So yeah, but we'll get there. That's what part of the center of excellence at the SDSU Brookings is all about, is to get that kind of going. And so we have a chair, I think that's what it's called, a chair, university chair or something. And so we've got two people working on programs and grants and correlating data from studies from way back when. And then they're even collecting, rancher data and things like that. So now all that data is going to be collected in one spot, cataloged and hopefully put to use for the producers. So that just got going here about 2 years ago. So we're moving up in the world.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. It's surprising to me that there's no university data on veterinary practices for bison, or there's not much for veterinary practices on bison, and there's like almost none on like medication and supplementation.
There is a handful. You know, Turner's have been doing some research on their stuff, and then back in the 90s and early 2000s, Wendell Eden, NDSU, can't remember the doctor's name right now, but it was, the bison research was at NDSU in North Dakota. So, and then that quit. So there's a little bit of data, you know, as far as digestibility, and then oh cripes, I just went blank. Skinny guy, gray hair, Salt and Pepper, University of Saskatchewan. The Canadians are ahead of us though. They've got a lot of data, and they've used some government funding just to have ranchers just collect necropsy samples and just send them in. You know, they paid them to do that. So so Canada's got some research. So there is research out there, but like as far as pharmaceuticals go, there's no real data.
So what do you do when you have one that gets sick or is obviously ill and in distress?
No, don't panic. Well, if they do get sick, you got something wrong. That's one good thing. Like, yeah, if it's not trauma related, you're gonna have some problems because they're pretty healthy for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you're saying like it's not going to be just one?
Yeah, it's not gonna be. It's Lay's potato chip time. You might as well just might as well clear your calendar because you got problems. Mycoplasma has reared its head this year pretty dang hard. It hit us pretty hard. Cattle, it's not a big deal. You hit them with a little bit of Draxin, and they come right out of it, cleans it right up. They get a runny nose, a little bit of cough, and they might lose 20, 30 pounds, but it kills bison deader than a doornail. So if you get mycoplasma in your bison herd, you're expecting probably 5 to 30% death loss.
And what does that do? It doesn't restrict. Is it restricts oxygen to like organs, or
it's kind of like a pneumonia. It turns
the respiratory, then
makes their lungs look like their liver.
Yeah.
Slowly closes up, and then like they've been getting, there's several strains that are swelling the lymph nodes and restricting airflow and food consumption, and then you get arthritis symptoms, and then you get a mastitis symptoms, and then usually a bad bag. So yeah, it's got instant effects and then lingering effects. And so the industry, Turner's and several other producers, including ourselves, we all got together and cultured some mycoplasma years ago and did a private label vaccine through Newport Labs. And then another group of two producers actually did their own and a separate, same but separate kind of vaccine. And that seemed to be working for a while. And, now we're into Omicron of the mycoplasma and the bison business. It's mutated again. And that strain that we've been culturing, that several producers have been culturing, wasn't included in the vaccine, but it will be, in the next one. But that doesn't help you for 12 to 18 months. So, but it takes the integrity and the wherewithal and the community mindedness of each producer to go out and actually take the samples and then get those extra samples to the lab to be cultured and mapped. So that's, another $180 or something like that per animal. So you as a producer, you know, you can't rely on Zoitis or Fort Dodge to be already handling this for you. You've got to be the one being proactive and doing it. So, but you know, that thank God that, you know, we're all family, and if I'm getting it, somebody's going to get it later. And so if I can get my sample in, you know, a month sooner, you know, that means the vaccine will be done a month sooner for somebody else. So
It's good that you guys stick together like that.
and then, you know, so we had mycoplasma and we didn't sell an animal off the place live this year
Because
So-
of the microplasm. Just you didn't want to
well
make sure it didn't leave.
Well, yeah. Well, the samples we were culturing were not included in the original vaccine. And so that means that nobody else, there's only 2 vaccines being made, and there's one company making both vaccines. And we're talking to them on the phone, and they say, well, it's not included in the you know, the vaccine. So, you know, we decided, we changed our management, and the only thing that we sold were animals destined for slaughter. So, you know, not everyone can do that. And did I do it, you know, well, you know, I did it, but do I enjoy it? No. I carried over a few animals, and my gross product went down, and my cash income went down. So, you know, so hopefully next year, by the time we get a handle on everything, and I'm not showing any symptoms and have any, you know, big positives, well, then I'll be able to, in good conscience, be able to move some animals down the road. So, you know,
I hope that works out for you.
yeah, but you know, I don't want to be the one lets the cat out of the bag, you know. So that's where we're at. So, but I don't think everybody would do that, but I'm pretty sure about 98% of the bison, or 99% of the bison producers that I hang out with would do that. So you just change your management. But, you know, that comes from back to holistic management, you know, because we're used to changing. You know, it gets
Right.
dry, you know, we got to destock. You know, it gets wet, oh, we gotta move a little faster, you know.
Okay.
And you know, you're just used to changing your plans, and you're just not stuck in your ways. So, and it makes it a little easier. But on the pocketbook, you just it's ag, roll it over. Roll
I'll
it
try
over.
to do better next year.
Yeah, we'll do better next year.
Oh, I remember when I was growing up, when you and I were both much younger men, that there was a lot of controversy about bison, and that most of the bison had cattle DNA in them. What can you say about bison and the purity of their DNA? Did I open up a can of worms for you?
Well, my personal stance, Mortiz Espy representing 777 Ranch. We do DNA test all of our animals. We were in the very first of the bunch to do our DNA testing with Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
And we were donating and sending. We were participating and donating to get the genome mapped. Okay. And so we do not allow anything to continue breeding that has cattle integration. But we are not selecting for that. We're not, I don't know how to say it. I'll just say it in easy terms. The base cow herd, there was cows with cattle integration.
Okay.
We did not focus on those animals and take them out of the herd and kill them. We are letting them finish their productive life. If they become open, they're going to be cold anyways. But then our replacement heifers, we've been doing DNA testing to current technology. And if that year's heifers meet current technology to go back into the herd as testing free of cattle alleles, they go back into the herd.
What percentage of bison will test free from cattle alleles?
In our herd,
In your herd and in the bison and in the North American bison herd?
a lot. I think we did, what did we do? I think we did 230 heifers, and we had two of them test with cattle alleles. So,
Less than 1% for you guys.
yeah. So,
What's it
and
like in the rest of the industry, though?
I don't think it's that high. And then, there for a while, they couldn't tell the difference between prehistoric cattle and modern cattle. So they didn't know if it was cattle before the Ice Age or cattle when the Europeans showed up. But the technology is getting better. The samples, because you got to remember, you're dealing with bison. Your data set is about this big.
Mm-hmm.
So until the data set, like if you think about Angus, the data set is huge.
Yeah.
And then if you deal with bison, the data set isn't like that. So it's controversial. And if somebody here's the problem. If somebody's using cattle DNA or a cattle integration as an argument, okay, that's outside of their management plan, they're using it as a tool to fool you because they've got something up their sleeve. Now, if your management plan is to maintain the integrity of bison as a species without cattle integration, and we're going to cull animals that happen to test, but if you're going to go out and just forcibly cull animals that test and not, they did that, we went to World War II for people, doing stuff for genetics and culling them hard. So don't even go down that road with animals. So if it's part of your management plan and you're going to work it out, yeah, that's fine. But then take a step back. And what I want you to remember is let's teleport back to 1890, right? And supposedly there's 1,000 head of bison in the whole world or less. And me and you are standing next to Charles Goodnight or Scotty Phillip or Lone Coyote up in Montana or whoever, right? We're standing right next to some of those conservationists of the bison.
So the last of the original native plains bison.
Right. What are the tools at our disposal?
Eyeballs
and things that we know. And those guys tried to crossbreed some cattle into bison and were successful in a little bit of them and made some beefalo. And some of them beefalo were able to breed and had more, right?
Yeah,
So
weren't sterile. Yeah.
So anyways, it's you're cussing these guys for trying to do the best they could with what they had. And
I think the argument is if they had not had tried to crossbreed them with cattle, that bison would have been extinct.
Maybe. I don't know. I ain't gonna argue it. It's possible. It's totally possible. But here's my side. We've got cattle integration going clear to 1890 or 1900, right? And so now we have a line of generation post bottleneck that has made it to 2020. So what did that animal contribute to the genetic gene pool to get here?
Right.
And probably could be 20 to 30 generations ago.
Right. Like I am as much Chinese as the buffalo standing on 777 ranch, those few head that have cattle integration are cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do not promote crossbreeding of bison with cattle. We don't do that. We try to preserve the integrity of the species bison at the ranch. But all I'm saying is that cow, that lineage of animal made it, whether it was a longhorn in Texas that escaped from the conquistadors, or if it was a local farmer that caught a calf and crossbred it with his milk cow, whatever it was, It wasn't in recent history, like the 90s or the 80s or even the 60s, which these people are taking it. They're like, oh, private industry crossbreeds cattle with bison and then sells them as bison. That's a political ploy. They're using the animal as a tool and some buzzwords to fool you. And so when they actually have cattle in aggression, it's out there. And there's data that's published coming from some of these parks and some of these people. Their cattle are just as dirty as everybody else's. I should say cattle. Their bison have cattle in aggression popping up all the time. And then, in 2009, you could have had a cow with the mitochondrial DNA test clean. And then in 2012, if you did another, instead of the nuclei or what the heck, there's two different types. But anyways, the technology's still getting better. We're finding better and better samples of bison frozen in the tundras of Siberia and Alaska, and then in the caves of Texas and everywhere else, where we're able to extract DNA to get a bigger picture pre-European times. So the science isn't even settled yet, and the data set is so small. So if they're using cattle in aggression to sway you one way or the other, my advice to you is take a step back and try to really listen between the lines of what they're trying to sell you.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. And to go along with what you're saying about the national park herds, you might remember this about 10 years ago, and I heard this from my friends down south of me that are also in the bison business, whose name I won't mention. They told me that the government refused to test the Yellowstone herd because they said it was pure and they didn't need to test it. But it was kind of like a secret that everybody in the bison industry knew that they were interbred with cattle and had cattle DNA. Do I have any of that right?
I cannot comment or confirm any of that situation there. That was the story, but I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. But
Interesting.
That story is floating around there.
Okay.
But Yellowstone animals are around, and like heck, last weekend, Ted Turner made that deal where he would quarantine them, and then he gets to keep the offspring. And cripes, there was 10 bulls that sold for $15,000, a piece. So
Were they worth that?
Oh yeah, they're Yellowstone genetics.
Because it's like an outcross. Is that what it is?
No.
What makes a Yellowstone genetic special?
Well, it's been limited. Everything coming out of Yellowstone, is killed. Everything that comes out of Yellowstone is killed.
So that's like a whole new resource of genetics.
Right. And it's Yellowstone. And the TV show and the big park and then the scarcity, it's they're
marketing behind it now.
They're 1987 classic top Air Force Ones is what they are. That's they're just a pair of shoes. So. But we paid a pretty penny for Yellowstone animals too, so don't worry. I've got in on the hype. But we've also got Teddy Roosevelt, Badlands, Wichita Mountains, Caprock Canyons. We've got I think we've got 6 of the main 7 heritage herds. So we're trying to do our part, and we're just trying to hold on to those genetics because anything can happen. And keep them viable. So,
do you guys have any issues with, and you don't have to answer this, inbreeding?
No, I don't. One, we're kind of a bigger herd, and then we're always running heavy bulls. So like right now, I've got 250 yearling coming 2-year-old bulls that are probably gonna be able to mount a cow. They might get her bred, but then I'm kind of always running heavy on bulls because I've got hunt bulls out there. I've got trophy bulls. I'm always heavy on bulls. And then we're always bringing in, 2 to 3, sometimes 8 bulls a year just to keep it fresh.
That's
So,
good. Yeah. It just reminded me of like the Holstein genetics. I think was there 7 lineages that they can trace every Holstein cow to. And my husband actually just cut out a 2-headed calf out of a cow last week. And I thought it's line breeding when it works, it's inbreeding when it doesn't, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
I thought it was, is it 7? I thought it was like 3 or 4.
It's probably
bulls.
less now, but I've always heard 7 being thrown around. Yeah.
I know there's a huge bottleneck with the Holstein breed, and it goes back to like either 3 or 7 animals that they're all getting semen from and still using some of that semen.
And like some of these registered breeds,
Right.
with embryo transfer and semen straws going all over the country, that's a man-made bottleneck. And
It is.
so,
And do you guys AI or no? Is it all live cover?
who was it? Colorado
industry, just so you know. Yeah.
Colorado. I don't know if it was Colorado State or if it was the arm. There's the old bombing run there on the outskirts of Denver, or right there in between Denver and the airport. I can't remember if it was them or if it was CSU, but they did some AI stuff, and it was for brucellosis research or whatever.
Right. Okay.
No, we're not.
Not really.
We're not AI.
Yeah. I can imagine that being fun. Not fun.
We're
sarcasm for sure.
The best way to talk to a cattle guy about bison is we're pretty much how cows used to be.
Yeah.
So we're not pulling calves. We're out on pasture more.
Ranching with nature. Yeah.
And the bulls are out there all year. So your bulls are out there all year, right?
Mine are. Most producers pull their bulls, house them in a different pasture.
Okay. So now the question is, do your cows have any sort of synced up, defined calving season that they naturally fall in because of the management and your forage and feed availability? Or are they just spread out everywhere?
No. So, but they will spread out everywhere. So since we're not feeding any hay or supplemental feed, we're drawn. So like right now, the body condition of my cows has peaked. And so by March, I want them to come back down to like a 6, almost a 5. And so right now, Christmas time, they should look good. First of the year, winter solstice comes around, they're looking great. They're big, fat, sassy, happy.
Yeah.
And now forage is getting more and more. It's 100% dormant. Temperatures are colder. Their caloric, goes up. Their caloric need goes up, and their actual forage intake should be going down just a hair. And we're pushing them a little harder, and then they've got a calf growing in them. So then their body conditions start going down just like this. And we consider our green up the 15th of March. And that's when we should start calving. So we'll start getting just that little tiny shoots, and then they'll calve, and then that grass will hit, and then they should bounce right back up. And so, yes, we do have a natural window, but it is assisted with an ultrasound machine.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they fall between that March 15th, May 15th.
Well, and that's because they're long day breeders in, right? Or is it short? Is that what it is? They like more sunlight during their photo period during the day, right? Instead of go to like shorter photo periods. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I would propose that has more to do with the forage on long sunny days in the summer,
and not sunlight,
and not the actual sunlight itself.
Yeah.
Not with the boys.
They're ready whenever.
No, well, yeah, they'll do it whenever. Any species will, but they're rutting hard, like they're bellowing and they're fighting and they're, oh God, it's just, it's awesome. Like I've been doing this for 16, 17 years now.
Yeah.
And when the rut hits and you see some bulls getting after it and doing their thing, it's stop the pickup, watch, and enjoy it. But it's always the same time, 20th of July, 20th of July. It's dead hard. They start, they start, them bulls start moving and doing some weird things around the 4th of July. And then about the 20th of July, it's bam, bam, bam. And it's just fun. And then that carries through. So I think it's the sunlight. I'm with you. It's the photo. What's the real word for
Period.
it?
Photo period.
Photo period. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put July 20th on my calendar
Go visit.
and go drive down to the Z Bar and go drive
Oh,
around
yeah.
on July 20th and see what's going on.
Oh yeah, that's right. You got Keith in there right next to you.
I wasn't gonna mention their name.
Oh, sorry. Oh geez, I didn't say his last name.
Leave it out.
Oh,
Yeah. Didn't say the last name. That's fine. I'm sure he won't mind. We didn't say anything bad.
So, no, he's a cool cat.
I
He don't even look like a bison rancher. He's always on vacation. It looks like.
He doesn't even look like he's a rancher, even when he's ranching.
I know. So, he's cool. Cool cat. Cool cat.
He did catch some heat from his employers several years ago. Like he literally got threatened that he couldn't wear Crocs anymore to work.
Well, safety hazard, man.
Yeah.
He puts them in 4-wheel drive.
Okay, yeah, he puts a strap on the back. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Crocs are super comfy, but they are. You can break your foot real quick.
Well, the EL, we're in EL together, obviously, but I've been working on the employee handbook, and in the employee handbook, it does say that long pants will be worn all the time. And like Cody and Justin, when it's 105, and if they're doing an animal move that day, if they're not welding, or doing something like that, they wear their cargo shorts. And so, yeah, we're going to probably have to amend that or just ignore it, but whatever.
Or bleep that section out.
Yeah. We're also a tobacco-free workspace too. So
how's that working out for you?
Fantastic. So yeah, but it says in the handbook. It says it right here in the handbook. So I can be fired at any time. So if you wear shorts, you can be fired at any time. So it's so for violating the policy. So
but at least it's written down and can't be referred to when necessary.
Yeah, it can be
Especially if you need a reason, right?
Yeah. So yeah. You know how that meme says, those kids can read, they'd be pretty mad at you right now.
Yeah.
That's us right here. That's us. If we could read, we'd probably be pretty bad. So
a lot of times I feel like the kid on the outside trying to hold up the sign when I'm talking about soil health or, regenerative ag.
Yeah. That's one thing. Regenerative ag. That's, like I mentioned that fire in Kansas, and then that's been overshadowed by that fire in
Colorado.
Oh,
that was
wowzers. And you live in grass country, I live in grass country. We've all known, we've had friends and neighbors lose everything from a lightning started grass fire, from a tourist started grass fire, or even an equipment started grass fire. And that just made national news. But what was the effect? And I may be opening up a can of worms, but I was kind of meditating on that, because they put the call out clear up here to send units, and we didn't have anybody available, but we didn't send anybody. But I got to thinking about that, and you know, when I used to go down into that country in the late '90s, there wasn't nothing there, you know, and now it's all just subdivisions. And you think about all that rainwater that's going sideways and then into forced drainages.
Yep, that used to be going into the soil or going down a natural drainage. Now it's
Right.
going on a roof or on concrete, going somewhere unnatural.
You know, and then I don't know if it was abnormally warm that day or whatever, but you know, I got to thinking, gosh, you know, urban interface in the fire industry is just a changing fire side. You know, there's so much urban interface with wildland and urban. And I was just trying to imagine to put myself there, but how much of that was affected by blacktop or wind moving through structures? I don't want to go down that road to say, you know, you don't have the right to build, but I think somebody should probably, who's smarter than me, should probably look into that. I don't know, but
I think we need to be more aware of what we are building and where we're building it. Like a lot of the houses that burned up in the wildfires we had here, you know, in 16, 17, and then down in Oklahoma in 2018, all the structures that were lost, okay, not all, can't say that, somebody will fact check me. Most of the structures that were lost had eastern red cedar trees within 50 yards of the house. Like when the Starbucks fire happened in 2017, I went over there, and of 13 houses that got burnt down, 11 of them had cedar trees right next to them. Like,
right.
Okay, so for context, eastern red cedar, it's a juniper, it's a coniferous tree, it's got a lot of heavy oils in it, and it burns like gasoline when it gets fire on it.
Yeah.
Why would you put those near your house if you live in the middle of grasslands that for 6 months out of the year are basically a tinderbox? Didn't make sense to me. Like after the fire in 2016, my dad had had 2 rows of cedar trees behind his house. Funny story. He planted them there. He transplanted them there in the late 90s. And this is after he'd already been on the ranch for 15 years, burning trees, cutting trees, and cleaning the place up. So he decides he wants a windbreak on the north side of his house. He goes and gets the tree spade from the conservation district. He goes out on the ranch to look for trees. Can't find any. Can't find enough to transplant trees. Can't find enough trees on 7,000 acres to transplant a windrow behind his house. So he had to go to the neighbor's property and requisition some trees. Okay. So he put that shelter belt behind the house. Another little funny story. The guy that was riding that pasture that he stole the trees out of, he came up to my dad one day down at the bar, and he's like, Ted, there's something really strange going on out here in the pasture. I got to show you this.
Oh no.
So of course my dad like immediately knew, like he instantly knew what Gene was on about, but he had to play along. So they go out to this pasture, and Gene takes him out to this spot where Dad had taken a tree and put back a plug of soil. So it's like there's a plug of soil in there that's 6 inches down from everything else, and the grass has turned like 90 degrees. And Gene's just standing there going, there's a bunch more of these, Ted. I don't know what's going on.
Aliens.
I think Dad messed with them for a minute, but he did tell him, like, no, I came over here and stole these trees. They're behind my house in a shelter belt. So in 2016, when that wildfire came through, we had a wildfire come right past that house in 2008. And it was a lot of work to keep fire out of that shelter belt, even though that day the wind was out of the south, so it would have been blowing away from the house. Anderson Creek in 2016, the wind was out of the northwest when it came by the house. And those trees are on the north side. And managed to keep fire out of there again. And about 2 months after that, I had finally caught my breath from rebuilding fence and, you know, getting cows back on the ranch and, you know, getting to where I was going to make a living again.
Right.
I had a day, and I was just sitting there in the yard, and I looked at my skid steer, and I looked at those trees, and I looked at the mulcher head, and I put all 3 of them together, and I made those trees go away in about 3 hours. Dad came out and he was like, well, it's going to be awful cold in the house this winter. And I said, well, it's better than being hot for one day, really, really, being really hot for one day.
Right.
I'm not messing with trying to keep fire out of these trees. Again, they're getting too big. They're too close. Fire gets in these, your house is gone. That's it.
Right.
It's gone. So being aware of where you're at, like the wildland urban interface has always been a problem for firefighters. And that situation is not going to improve at all. And I have to look at the management of those interface areas. Like we can control the management on our ranches. We can manage a dangerous fuel load on our ranches because it's our private property. We kind of get to do what we want for the most part. And part of that for me is managing a fuel load if I want to burn or if I want to protect an area from burning. Right.
Right.
And I think that as people, move out into these urban wildland interface zones, because they want to live near nature, it's so pretty. Well, it's not always pretty when it's been conserved and not managed at all. Overgrown forest is way more of a fire hazard than anything else.
Right.
And we see that in the mountains. I'm sure you see that in the Black Hills, your trips through Colorado. CK, I know you see it out there in Idaho. Just like we're relearning to manage our grasslands better. The way we did it, the way we all learned how to do it, and the way we've been doing it previously, I think most of our listeners, and I know the three of us can all agree, didn't work. That's why we're all trying to do stuff differently. Right. And I think we need to start looking at like the federal lands management, BLM, Forest Service, whatever you want to look at, however you want to call it. Public lands are like the worst managed. They're not managed at all. They're not managed to the point of intentional neglect, which leads to dangerous fuel buildup. And you have a situation like happened in Colorado, where fire gets going, where there hasn't been any logging, grazing, any animal impact allowed. And that fire just roars right into town because the forest is so overgrown and over thick with brush. Fire just runs into town and runs right through town. Like that shouldn't happen. Like, there should be some kind of a buffer zone in between these dense urban areas and the wildland where they could stop a fire. That's right. Just me.
But the thing is there's what, two stakeholders in our management plan, us and nature.
Mm-hmm.
I get
it. I mean, that's a pretty easy management plan. That's what happens. That's the problem. You get, but like I was gonna say, you get a bunch of stakeholders. When you get into a situation like that, you've got so many stakeholders in it. The plan just gets derailed or has to take a less effective route. And maybe it's a little W right in the beginning, but like a lot of them people, they didn't know. They just bought a beautiful home. Those homes were beautiful.
Oh, look at these beautiful trees right out the back door.
I know they're beautiful. They don't know, but it was just something that I got to thinking. I drove through that area and before, and then I was and I need to go back down there. I don't know exactly where it is, but I was thinking, gosh, there's probably something to do with it. I don't know, maybe it was just a freak event, but you're right. There needs to be some management, some safety, and hopefully, with these large events, people become more fire wise,
right?
Like removing the shelter belt, and maybe we shouldn't have actual dead. Like even around here, I was sent in our own fire district. I was sent to protect a house, and I mean the grass was thigh high up close to the house, and there was wood stacked under the deck and everything else, and full of duff and litter and leaves, and I mean we get that everywhere, and but you know, it comes right back down to personal responsibility. But in that situation where the radiant heat of your neighbor's house catching on fire, catches your other house on fire, catches the other house on fire, just through radiant heat. It's not even actual flame contact. It's radiating heat that's so hot that it combusts. So
Really? Yep.
yeah, it's just tragic, but you know, maybe we make them more than 8 feet apart. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I hate to laugh because there's so many, you know, what is there, 1,000 homeless families down there, but I don't want to laugh too and be recorded and broadcasted, but yeah, hopefully there's some lessons learned there. And yeah, and hopefully but you know, animal agriculture and holistic management are getting little wins everywhere, you know, through goats. You know, I hate to go back to goats, but there's these, you know, people with goats, and you know, they're getting W's because they're winning in areas that are in urban areas or public lands, you know, controlling noxious weeds or something like that, or knocking down fuels. And then on the flip side of that, you've got people riding their bikes through public lands, and you have a non-functioning water tank that is just being trumped bad in a riparian area that's being trumped in next to a biking trail. And it ends up on Instagram and Snapchat, and there's a pick your color a cow that's standing there to be the culprit, you know, and then the land baron cattle man behind it, you know, and here's this cow knee deep in a stream coming out of a busted float out of a poorly managed tank, and you know, just busting the crap out of that, and they think it's a, you know, pristine trout stream, you know. And you know, if we could control that stuff and make that stuff go away, but that stuff happens all the time. We all lose a float, or a float gets stuck, or something happens, and you know, you have that stuff happen all the time. But you know, you know, that's the thing. You got both sides. On one side, we got the narrative that we're trying to project, that we're cleaning up and doing good with animal agriculture, and then on the flip side of it, you got that 0.5% guy with a, you know, lease, and granddaddy's always had a lease, and I've always put 200 head up there, and now the land manager's going to tell me I can only put 150, and he forgets to tell you that granddaddy's cows only weighed 900 pounds, and his cows weigh 1,700 pounds, and
Right.
you know, and he's calving in December because he wants his calves to be fully grown and survive the truck ride to the hills and everything else, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's just insane. But no, I mean, we all got to get on board and stick together and try to control that narrative and do the best we can, and then hopefully, you know, things will change, because you know, even, you know, we say it all the time, don't blame the cow, blame the how. And
right,
we gotta, and you know, it's not just the cow, it's don't blame the protein, blame the how, because you know, we could be doing it with sheep, we could be doing it with goats, we could be doing it with cattle, we could be doing it with other ungulates, we could be doing it with bison, we can, you know, there's no one species that fits each as a whole, but in each situation we can find a species that fits.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
so
Whew, I just looked at the clock. We're getting close.
are
We
we?
need to wrap this up. Have we forgot to ask you anything?
Gosh, I don't know. We got that dang sliver in my finger. Yeah. No, I think we covered the gamut. I thought I'd tell you a little. I probably should put a little more facts about bison, and you know, how it's so good for you, and
Lay it on us.
it's what Americans were supposed to eat. You know, but no, I mean, try bison. I mean, I go to town and I get me a good beefsteak every once in a while. I ain't afraid to produce my, and like the bison guys ain't gonna outdo the cattle guys. We ain't gonna replace you. And then when people say bison are the culprit, whether they get the bad name, right around, the Yellowstone Park area, brucellosis, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
the whole state of Montana. Just remember that there's no management plan up there. That could be handled so much better. They could have an auction. They could do better roundups, and they could convert, mature animals into meat or observe, treaty rights. Heaven forbid that. And have local indigenous people doing the harvesting for them or something like that. So, if somebody tries to use bison in a bad light, they usually have an agenda, good or bad. And there's some groups using bison as a tool, saying that they move themselves around, and we can buy these large plots of land and remove all the fence and the interior fencing, and then bison are going to manage themselves, and they're going to improve the ecosystem because they're the keystone species.
That doesn't work, does it?
Well, no, because you're using 2-3 million acres, but that 3 million acres, it doesn't spread from northern Canada to northern Mexico.
And is there a predator pushing them?
Right. And or tribes of people pushing them.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to remember the human species has been having a footprint on the ecosystem for a long time as far as management goes. And so if somebody tells you that they've got a halo, you just remember that the pounds per square inch on the hoof of a bison is the same as a cow. And you got to remember the distance from the outside of the lip to their teeth is the same. They can only graze down that far. And they should only be grazing down that far if they're forced to. Just like a cow. A horse can graze down to that far. A goat can graze down to that far. That's the distance because a horse has a way to move its lip, and he has teeth on the top.
Right.
Things like that. So, it goes against all the biology. So, he's tearing up. Each footstep is a footstep, and each they're sticking that tongue out there, and they're curling that tongue, and they're pulling leaf off of that plant. And if you force them to bite it twice, well, either you need to be moving them with water on a pipeline, or you need to be moving them, or you controlling them with fence or herders. If you're gonna, you can remove all the fence, but you better have a herder or herders. So
I can see that turning into a wreck, like not being able to find animals, having a group that just goes feral, that never gets seen.
But they're going to camp on those riparian areas.
Of course,
they're going to graze them, and then they're going to be somewhat sub irrigated, or they're in a drainage, and so the water's going to drain there during a rain event, so it's going to have higher moisture, and then that's going to have your fastest growth. And if that rain event comes back before a proper rest period for that plant species, that's overgrazing. Plain and simple. It's not the animal, science. It's time and science. That's it. And so, and like I said, animals don't overgraze, managers do. And that's just the way it is. And hopefully we can keep getting that message out there. So
I think that's a good spot to end.
Yeah. Well, it was good to see your face. I'll probably see you in Colorado Springs. It was nice to meet you. Down there in the little sign there. Shake your hand down there in the corner. There you go. Perfect.
Well, it was great to see you too, Moritz, and really thank you for joining us.
You bet. Thank you, sir. You enjoy the rest of your day.
Will do.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yep. Bye, guys. Enjoy your week.
Bye.